Did you know that Excel 2016 has 467 functions? But there's a lot more with add-ons that can give you additional functions, and you can always write your own. That's a lot of functions, and you're just learning a fraction of those. And even if you use Excel a lot, you still will not use many of those functions, and you certainly will not have them memorized. Now, I'm not saying this to get you discouraged. I'm saying this to drive home the point of how important it is to understand how a function is structured. If you can read a function and know what the arguments are, then your spreadsheet is only as limited as your Googling capabilities. In Excel, one of the most commonly used functions is the if function. So let's review the if and nested if. The if function is a logical function. The result hinges upon either a true or false outcome of a logical test. Think of it in terms of if this is true, then that. Otherwise, if this is false, something else. This is one little function and it can be incredibly powerful. But what is really the most powerful thing about the if function is that it can be nested within and combined with other functions to create an incredible amount of flexibility to meet different requirements. So let's take a look at a couple of examples that I have. In this spreadsheet example, we're tracking customer names, their due dates for an invoice, and then I just want it to return whether it's past due or not due yet. So I have an if function here. And here's my if function, and I have my dialog box open so it makes it easy to take a look at. So my logical test is A2. What I have in A2 is actually the today function. So it's today's date minus C8. So what is the due date of the invoice? If that is greater than 30 days, if that is a true logical test, what I want it to return is past due. If this logical test is false, I want it to return not due yet. So it's easy to look at it here in the function dialog box, but if I come up here and actually look in the function, we're looking at the same thing, but now my argument, so I have 3 arguments, my arguments are divided by a comma, and my text is in quotation marks. So very important how a function is structured. You always start with an equal sign followed by what the function is with an open and a close parentheses. All functions are separated by a comma. Okay, so that one's actually pretty easy to understand. The if function is actually pretty straightforward. But what happens when we go to a nested if function? Now that can get a little bit more complicated, but again, we have to know how to read the function. So let's go and take a look at another example that I have. Here we are in Mrs. Harris's Excel class, and I'm tracking first name, last name, what the score is on a test, and what I want to return is based on the score, I want a letter grade. So let's take a look at this function. So we have a nested if function, and you can see I have it nested 1, 2, 3 times within the original. So what are we looking at here? Let's break this down. So remember what an if statement is. It has a logical test, and then if this is true, what value do you want to return? If it's false, what value do you want to return? So let's go back to our nested if. So I started out equal if. Now if C5 is greater than or equal to 90, if this is true, then I want to return the letter grade of A. But if this is false, what I'm doing is I'm nesting another if statement into the false. So if this is false, then I want it to evaluate again. So if C5 is greater or equal to 80, if this is true, return a B. But again, if this is false, we're going to evaluate it again with another if function. So if C5 is greater or equal to 70, if this is true, then C. Again, if this is false, we're going to evaluate again with an if function. So if C5 is greater than or equal to a 60, a D. Now, if this is false, we're done with our if functions. So now we can say that's an F. So basically, this F is the false that goes with the first part of our if function. Now remember, for every open parentheses, you have to have the same number of closed parentheses. So I hope by breaking this down, it makes it a little easier to see what you're looking at here. Okay, hope that was helpful.